Hey everybody, this is Nichole Paschal with Topaz. Thanks so much for joining me here today for Quick Tip Thursday. Today's topic is going to be talking about quad tone. Quad tone is a very unique feature within the new Topaz Black and White Effects, and my personal favorite because it really allows you to have a lot of control over everything. So I have a few tips for you today, and then I'm going to kind of explain the tool itself, and then we'll take an image and play around with this really powerful tool. So if you have any trouble during the presentation with sound or your screen, you can usually log off and log back in, and that will solve the issue, especially if you turn off anything that might be running flash or something that might be taking up a lot of memory on your system. Also, if you have any questions along the way, Miss Ashley Robinson, our product manager, is online with us to answer those questions. You can type them into your questions module. It's located on your GoToWebinar panel, and she'll be answering those, and then I'll answer any questions at the end of the presentation that you might have that we weren't able to get to by typing. All right, so a couple tips to start off with. My first tip is to control the contrast and tone by moving the region sliders. One thing that people get a little bit confused about, or actually don't know about, is when you go through all of the different presets, some of those toned presets, or some of the ones that have really strong tone on the alternative process presets, don't look good. They start to muddy up the shadows, or that your highlights start to clip. So what you really need to do at that point, if you like the tone but it's just not working for that particular image, it's very easy to go into the tool and just move those region sliders around to get exactly what you're looking for, to handle the highlights and lowlights properly. Tip number 2 is click on the color swatches to change colors. Those are not set colors for each preset. You can, if you don't like, let's say in a cyanotype, you don't like a certain blue and you want to have a darker blue, you can easily click on the color swatch to change that color. So tip number 3 is experiment, experiment, experiment. This is a really fun tool, and it allows you to really create many unique looks, and that's why I consider it one of the most powerful tools within black and white effects. Okay, so let me just show you this screen real quick just to get you a little oriented with the actual tool. So this is what the quad tone tool looks like within the program. We're about to get in the program, but what you would see is 4 color swatches, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 4 region sliders that will control that particular color above it. And each region slider goes from 0, which is black, to 255, which is white. So wherever your actual slider is located, or the where you put this particular color on this region, or this tonal region scale, is where it's going to be applied into your image. So here, just for an example, is a gradient that shows exactly what these colors would be applied to the tonal scale. This color 1 region, which is this darker blue, would be over here at 0, and it would slowly change and blend into this next color 2 region, which is that value 100, which would be about right here. And then color 3 is this more of a greenish beige color, and it would fade into that, slowly blend until it gets to 180, and then it would slowly go into this white color, which is 255. Now I wanted to show you what it would look like when you move the sliders around. Over here on the left, I've taken the color 1 region slider and moved it up just a little bit. And you can tell that because it's darker over here. One tip to remember about the quad tone, another tip, is when you move this color 1 region slider towards the white side, away from 0, or any slider for that matter, you're going to start seeing a black. It's going to fade from this color into black. And that just gives your shadows a little bit more oomph if you want it. You can also just change this color to black. However, you can really work with it the way you would like, and we'll go into it in just a second. Now I've also moved this color 2 region slider from 100 to 57, so it does a much quicker blend, and then it does a much longer blend into the color 3 region because I've moved that from 180 to 205. So you can see it takes much longer to get to this color 3, and then it goes to 255 again. So let me show you how that's applied to the image. Okay, there we go. So we're going to be working with this image today, and that first example, which is kind of the default positions for the sliders, they're not messed with at all. All we have is the tone itself. When I took that preset and changed those to the default positions, this is what was applied to my image. To me, this doesn't look good. It really muddies up the mid-tones. It's not handling anything correctly, in my opinion. But just by moving the sliders around just a little bit, I was able to pull out this image in about 5 seconds. So if your preset, or if you get into if you pick some tones that you really like, but they're not applying to your midtones, your shadows, or your highlights correctly, it's very simple just to fix that right away. So let's go into the program. Okay, I'm just making a background copy. Again, this is just a quick tip Thursday specific for quad tone. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the entire program, we do have an introduction to Topaz black and white effects on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/topazlabs, and that really goes into all the different features within the program. This is specific to quad tone, so let's just go ahead and jump right into quad tone. Quad tone is going to be located in your finishing touches. Okay, it's going to be under your silver and paper tone, and you can just open it up. Now, as you go through different presets, right now I'm in the Van Dyke Brown collection, which is going to be different browns and warm tones. As you go from preset to preset, let's open that up again. I don't know why it closed. You're able to see that these colors here are applied to this image. So let's go down just a little bit. Now this is actually simulating a little bit of a cyan and Van Dyke together, so you see this blue coming out. But this is a great example of the tones are not applied to this particular tonal scale for my image correctly. So maybe I could come in here. I see that my color 1 region, which is pretty dark, is pumped up to 4602. So if I want to open up those shadows a little bit, I can just take that down, and my shadows will start opening up. Okay, but now I feel like there's way too much of this color too. So now I can bring that maybe down just a little bit towards the 0 scale and brighten up that grass. Now the color 3, I can decide what I want to do with that. It gets really bright, so maybe we don't want to do that, and we want to go a little bit further into the 255 or white regions. So now this blue color is going to be applied directly to the 204 tone on my tonal scale, but then it's going to blend both ways to 255 and to 5895. So that's really how it works. One thing that makes this quad tone so powerful within this program is it allowed for me to create tons of different presets that were much more realistic than you would find with just silver and paper. When you're working with silver and paper, you really only have 2 hues, but if you are working in a wet darkroom and you do multiple tones, let's say, I'm going to go to my tone collection here. Let's say you have a sepia and selenium mixture tone. You're not going to be able to necessarily get all of these different tones just using a duotone or a silver and paper tone. So that's what the quad tone was really able to bring to black and white effects and allow for all of these different presets to be created. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the questions as I'm working towards more of these images. Actually, I do want to show you a couple more things before I take the questions. If you want to change your color, for this particular color, it's kind of a, I think it's a really, if you want to see what it is, you can click on it. A color picker will show up, and this looks like it's a very, very, very dark purple, almost black. So if you maybe want to bring out a little bit more purple, you can just move that gradient up just a little bit. You can say OK, and it's applied to your image, and now you can see that color swatch has changed to that purple. Let's say you want to change this particular color. You just click on it and can apply that to your image. So you really do have a lot of control, and then once you've chosen the tone, you can go even further with it and really work with it in the image itself. It helps to control the contrast, and I think it's a really powerful, this is my favorite tool. All right, so it's pretty easy to understand once you know that each of these regions go from 0 to 255. Now what I do want to show you too, one more thing before I give it over to you guys. I want to show you really how crazy you can get. So in our stylized collection, just for the heck of it, some really fun presets were created. If you open up, if you see these really crazy type of colors, you know that it's going to be coming from your quad tone. So you can open that up and see exactly where those colors are applied on that scale. And let's say you want to change it around and get a little bit more of, a little less crazy, or you just want to play with it and apply it to your image correctly, you can do that. So this is our graphic dreams. This is using the posterize along with the quad tone. So all of these really kind of crazy presets are coming from that quad tone as well. Now as you come down into your stylized collection, I do have some quad tone presets, mostly on the red scale, and then you also have the ability to create tones over your image by using the transparency. So even when you use a quad tone or the silver and paper tone over the transparency and bringing back some of your original image color, you can give your image a really authentic old color film look, which I know is not necessarily black and white, but again, our little slogan for this program is black, white, and beyond, because it does have a lot of tools, not just black and white, as you can tell. Also, if you hadn't heard yet, you might be noticing that your program looks a little different than mine up on the screen. For example, I have a platinum collection, which has multiple presets that simulate the platinum printing process. I also have something called my collection, which is saving my personal presets as I create them. Additionally, there are tons of different not tons, I didn't mean to say tons, there's several new features that are added to my program, and that is because I'm working on version 1.1. We just upgraded today. If you are not on our mailing list, definitely get on our mailing list to learn about upgrades in the future. But for now, you can go to Facebook or go to our blog or the website and download 1.1 if you already have version 1. We just did an update to handle some bugs. We also put in a histogram within our curve tool. We also added about 28 presets, including this platinum collection, and an area to save in my collection. There are several other things, but I can't really think of them at the time, actually. So go check it out for sure if you haven't done so already. All right, concerning the quad tone, I will go ahead and take questions now, and we can talk about this just a little bit more. Mike asked a good question. He says, any advantage to opening with color image, or will black and white effects work just as well with black and white image? Mike, as it applies to the quad tone will work just as well on a black and white image as it does on a color image, because it's pulling from the 0 to 255 scale, which a black and white image has, just as a color image has. You are not going to be able to go into your conversion tools and use things such as color sensitivity, where you can really control the different colors by themselves within your image, or the color filter, because that's pulling from color information. But I believe those are the only two things that are going to not be applicable to a black and white or grayscale image. Note that if you do have a grayscale image, you do need to convert it to RGB, even though it is grayscale, to bring it into Topaz, any Topaz program. Also, you wouldn't be able to do selective color, obviously. Yvette has a great point. She edited an image in black and white effects, but then wanted to add a vignette to take it back into black and white effects. But the image did not stay in what she had applied to the image. It did turn back into a black and white image. That's because it is a black and white conversion tool, so if you take an image or a JPEG or anything, it's going to automatically turn that into a black and white image. There is a way around that. You can use smart objects when you're in Photoshop, if you're using Photoshop, and it will hold all the information. The other way around it is going to be creating a preset. If you have something you really like and might want to apply to a few other images, or you think that you might want to work on your image a little bit more but you just don't have time, go ahead and create a preset and put it in your collection. You can just pull it right back up. The great thing about the presets is that if once you're done with it, if you don't want it, if you start having 100 presets and it gets a little too much, you're easily able to delete your user-made presets. Once you click on it, a user-made preset, the delete button will become active, and you can just delete that whenever you choose. Patrick asks, how do you do it if you want to do a duotone image? Patrick, you can actually, let me go over this real quick now that we're in question mode here. Just because there are these 4 color swatches doesn't mean you have to use it as a color image. So, for example, let's just take this to black. Okay, maybe. Come here, little guy. All right, taking that to black. And I'm just going to take these to different points on my grayscale. Okay. Okay, so now I've only been using the grays here, and now I'm going to be able to come in and have even more control over my contrast and how the tone and where the tone is applied in my image. So you do have more control over tone even if you're not using colors. Now I did this to show you can use a duotone here as well. You can keep your black, keep your whites, and come in here and maybe just use a little bit of a warmth to warm up these midtones. So you're easily able to do that. However, if you wanted to use just silver and paper tone to work with your lowlights and the highlights, you can open that up and click it on. The default is going to be warm. I take my paper tone strength up, and you can choose your tones. So let's say I wanted to keep my silver warm, but I want my paper to be cool. Now I can mess with my balance to see and bring out more paper tone, which is the cooler side, or the warmer side. Keep it even. I can change the strength on an individual basis, and I can change the overall tonal strength as well. So this is a pretty simple, there's a few sliders here, of course, to give you a lot of different controls over it, but it's pretty simple to come in here and just use your silver and paper. I'm not sure if I already said this. The silver is going to control the darker tones in your image, and the paper is going to control the lighter tones and whites in your image. Okay, Robin says, if you change the color with the color picker, can you save that new color palette as part of a custom preset to apply to other images taken at the same time? Absolutely. So let's go ahead and do that since a couple people have asked about it now. So let's say I'm just going to make this really obvious that we're okay. So this is pretty obvious that it's our own creation here. And I'm going to save. Okay, and I'm just going to save as quad test. And this is a great example to show you how the new My Collection works within version 1.1. By default, this is going to be checked. This little checkbox is new. It says Save in My Collection. If you want to save it within the collection that you were already in, then you can uncheck this box and it will save directly from whatever collection you started from. If you want to save in My Collection, which I do, just press OK. Okay, and then we can go to My Collection. We obviously changed back to the last used settings when I was in My Collection, but I now see my quad test preset. I can just click on that, open up my quad tone, and there they are. Okay, Brett would like me to further explain what each of the 4 regions affect and how they're applied. Sure. So each region is 0 to 255, okay? So 0 being black, 255 being white. Okay, so here's 0, here's 255. So if my color 1 region, which is this dark blue, is at 0, then at my 0 value, which is the darkest value within my image, my blacks are going to look like this blue. If my color 2 region is this lighter blue at value 100, on my tonal scale of 100, that is where that blue is going to be located, and in my image, any tone that is this gray is going to have that blue applied to it. Now everything between 0 to 100, that dark blue to light blue, there's going to be a natural blend that happens. Okay, so as you move on to the next one, which is at 180.9, which is going to be about right here, you're going to blend until you get to that color in your color 4 region. Okay, so I did change it around over here on the bottom, and you can see it changes, which changes how it's going to be applied to this overall tonal scale 0 to 255 of your image. This color 1 doesn't necessarily have to be at 0. So let's look what happens as I just kind of I can kind of make a negative right now. Okay, so now I've made a negative because I've moved my color 1 region to 255 and changed everything around. So you can get quite creative with this particular feature, and it doesn't even, you can choose crazy colors, whatever you want to do. It's just wherever this slider is located is where this color swatch is going to be applied, or that tone is going to be applied on your tonal scale. So 255 is white on a tonal scale, so all my whites, which are up in the clouds, are now this tone. I hope that makes sense. I hope that explains it a little bit better. Topaz asks, could you control shades of gray by quad tone? Topaz, yes, and I think you saw that just a second ago. I think you asked that before I went to the grays. And I actually do that a lot as opposed to using it just for additional contrast control. Okay, Theodore says, can I make modifications in black and white and then bring back all the color and then go to CS5? Or will bringing back all the color negate all the modifications? The transparency does not bring back all the color because it is a black and white program, and the transparency was brought into the program. Here, let me get out of this. It's kind of crazy, huh? Let's go to, sure, we'll go to this one. Okay. So this is one of our Albumin presets, which actually looks pretty good right now for this particular image. But I think what you're talking about is bringing all the color back on a global scale here with the overall transparency. You're able to bring back 50% of your color, but as you can see from the original color image, you're not able to bring back the entire color. Reason being, again, it's a black and white program. The overall transparency was brought into the program to give you a hand-tinted look to certain black and white images. So in the Opala type collection, you'll see certain hand-tinted presets that are supposed to simulate somebody who hand-tinted their black and white image. So that was why it was brought into the program. When you take it back into CS5, it will recognize the color because it's still an RGB image. So you can still take this image right here into CS5 and it will recognize it as a color image because it is RGB and you haven't lost that color. It's there. Michelle, that is something I really want. She asked, do you plan to add an eyedropper to pick up colors from the original photo? It's something that is in our request box and I'm hoping can be added in the next update or sometime after that, because I think it is something that can be truly beneficial. Patrick says, is there any workaround to be able to use smart objects when using Photoshop elements? Patrick, if you don't have the ability to use smart objects and you're working on an image, let's say I have a cyanotype, okay, and I'm working with my cerulean tea rose dynamic. No, we'll go for a more authentic look with just the tea rose. Okay, and I come over here and I'm working on my sliders. I get it to somewhere that I think might be good. Let's see here. Okay, how the tones are applied to the image, and I say okay, and I forget that I forgot to save the preset. If you, this is a kind of large image, sorry about that. Okay, so if the minute you go back into black and white effects, it's going to remember your last settings. So it just applied those last settings to your new image, so that didn't really work, did it? Let's cancel. So if you take your original background back in, it will apply the last settings you just used, and you can save it as a preset. So you can come over to here, see that your sliders are where you actually put them. But the minute you go away from this last used settings preset, so let's say I went to Cerulean Dynamic, and then I try to get back to my Cerulean T-Rose that I changed, it's now just going to give me my Cerulean Dynamic preset. So this is a really nice feature to have if you accidentally leave without saving your preset or something like that. You can go back in and you have those settings saved. So that's kind of what a smart object will allow you to do. The only thing is you have to be careful about not going anywhere else because you can't get back to it. You can also save snapshots as you're working, which I really like because it allows you to take pictures of all of these different adjustments that you've made and lets you continue working, and then you can toggle through all of your snapshots to see which one you really prefer. But those are lost when you leave the program. So, you know, there are some benefits to this remembering, but you just have to be careful. Also, I guess that kind of was going around the entire question. I don't know of a personal workaround where you can save everything other than just saving a preset within the program. When you so when you go back in, it's all remembered. It's only this last few settings or saving a preset. Lois asks if there are a place to exchange user presets. We don't have a specific place on our site, but if you go to our forum, we have quite a few threads where users and members share with each other. So you can check that out. Also, our user-led Flickr group has a pretty significant thread on there about or sharing all the different presets. Now, most of the presets that they have on there currently are going to be for adjust, some simplify, and detail. However, if you start sharing black and white ones, I'm sure somebody will follow along. People have made some incredible images on there already. Steve has something he wants to share. He says it's not a question, but those who may do infrared with a converted camera, black and white effects rocks when working with the reds and different things that dominate. He says it allows lots of control that Photoshop doesn't, so buy it. Thanks, Steve. You can also just download it for free and check it out for 30 days to see if it's something that works for you. I always say try before you buy. Jeannie says, can we now have our image be a smart image before bringing into the black and white program? Yes. We do have the availability to create. Let's see here. I'll just show you real quick. Just convert to smart filters. So now it's a smart object, and now I can take it directly back into black and white effects. Okay, let's just change a couple things to, well, let's go into what the topic's actually about here. Okay, let's make a, I don't know, I think I'm going a little bit warm with that. Okay, so now I've changed certain things that definitely are specific to this image. I'm not saving a preset, I'm just saying okay. It's going to go back into Photoshop as a smart filter. And I can just click on my Topaz Black and White Effects again to open it back up. I can go to my finishing touches, and it has all of the information that we just included. So now I can come in here and just change it around and continue working on it without actually saving it as a preset. It's a really smart way to work if you, especially if you have tons of different, if you're really working over here on the right side and tons of your own settings, it's really a good way to work if you have Photoshop. So I'm going to say cancel. Donald, yes, you are correct. Topaz does work with other programs other than Photoshop or Photoshop Elements. I usually work with Photoshop as my host program on the webinars, but we do have Lightroom, or we are compatible with Lightroom, Aperture, iPhoto, different programs such as Paint Shop Pro, etc., things like that. You can check out our compatibility page on our support page. It's the third frequently asked question, I believe, down, and you can check out all the different compatibilities and the system requirements. Also, there are good directions to set up in each different program because it might be different from Photoshop to Lightroom. For example, with Lightroom, you have to use Fusion, which is our free compatibility software that allows you to access Topaz as a plugin. So all the information is there online for you. Thanks, Donald. All right, everybody, thanks so much for sticking around with me, and I hope this was beneficial to you with the quad tone. This really is my favorite tool within the program because it is so powerful. I love it. And I hope that you start to experiment with it, enjoy it within your imagery. All right, thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.